For pole floats, this is the final pattern. As I mentioned, I like to consolidate my floats down, and this type of float takes over really when I'm fishing deeper, even more powerful pegs like you find on the River Wye or the River Trent in certain areas like the Tidal Trent, or on the River Severn. So this is the edge tackle, and this is the N6 series of floats. We've got 4 floats from 2 gram, 3 gram, 4 and 5. And as I said, this is where I'm going to be fishing with heavier floats, bigger olivettes, and fishing for bigger fish. A great feature about these floats is the fact that we've got the line going through the body. So when you're using thicker lines like 0.20mm main lines, you're not cutting into the body of the float when you're catching lots of fish and when you're changing the depth. Again, you've got that really key position of the eye very near the top of the body to enable perfect control when you're fishing with a pole float on a river. You've got a very sturdy carbon stem and a nice thick hollow tip. So a little bit like the N5, this is a type of float where you're going to be catching either bigger fish or fish very quickly, and you're using heavier gear. So same as the previous float, main lines up to 0.20. I don't really ever go over 0.20 main line. 0.16 as well when you're fishing on the finer or sort of lighter side of this heavier type of float. And I've set up here, this is a rig that I've actually used a few times on the Trent recently, and this is a 4 gram version of the N6. You can see there, actually interestingly, I've put a piece of silicone over the tip of the float to black it out, obviously just to save blacking the yellow float out. It's quite a nice tip, that, just pushing some silicone on the tip. You can either thicken the tip by doing that if you can't quite see your float, or change the colour in this case from yellow to black. And again, this is set up on the top 5. This is actually our CP800 pole, and I'll set that up on the top 5. So it's a stronger pole to sort of match with the heavier floats and heavier line that I'm using. It's also a rig that you could use on the whip, on the CP200 whip, and one that I use a lot on rivers like the Wye when you're fishing to hand and catching lots of fish very quickly. Elastic wise, you're going to be using obviously heavier elastics, the 10 to 12 solid, even the 12 to 14. So you're upping the ante with the elastic in keeping with the size of the float and the size of the hooks and the line that you're using. Same type of shotting pattern as the N5. Predominantly I'm using an olivette. They're too big really for using shot bulks. So in this case I've got a 3.75 olivette. I've actually used number 6 shots on this to trap the olivette and as droppers. Same scenario, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 number 6s below, so I can create that double bulk if I want, or I can push the bulk up and spread the shot out. So very, very simple shotting patterns, and shotting patterns that really work when you're being very, very positive in nature, like this type of float and this type of rig requires. So hook length wise, same as the N5, up to 0.16 and down to about 0.14. Again, it's a float that you can use when you're fishing on a whip and you're running the float through, perhaps overshotting it slightly to give the best presentation, or you're absolutely blocking it and holding it still, laying on, maybe fishing for bream, perch, eels. This heavier type of float is going to enable you to do that in some quite strong and deep pegs. So that's the final sort of pattern really. Hook wise, same story, B711s in the bigger sizes. I do really like this Census hook. It's a 3180 BZ in the bigger sizes, particularly if I'm fishing for bream. I really like that hook. If I'm fishing more for chub, then I tend to go for the B711s. But obviously stronger hooks in keeping with the stronger hook lengths and bigger floats, bigger fish. So that concludes the video on pole float fishing on rivers. I hope that the rigs that we've shown, including the floats, the line, the hooks and the shotting patterns, have helped you when you go out river fishing. All of these products are available on the Edge website, so check it out, and also check out the poles on our Cadence website. Thanks for watching.